Official agency records. Unaltered visual proof. Transparent enforcement. This is bodycam incident reports.
Roll it down. License registration now.
I'm waiting for my daughter. What's the reason for this stop?
Suspicious vehicle. Step out.
Suspicious? We're sitting in a pickup line?
Out of the car.
Don't touch me. I'm fire department. My badge is in the console.
To the casual observer passing by Maplewood Elementary on that crisp Tuesday afternoon, the scene looked like a nightmare in motion. A uniformed police officer, hand hovering dangerously close to his holster, screaming commands at a driver who was doing absolutely nothing but waiting for his child. But to Andre Coleman, a 15-year veteran of the city's fire department, this wasn't just a nightmare, it was a Tuesday. It was the reality of existing in a body that society deemed dangerous, even when that body had run into burning buildings to save the very people who now looked at him with suspicion. Maplewood was the jewel of the suburbs. Manicured lawns, high property taxes, and a school district rated 10 out of 10 on every real estate website. It was the kind of place people moved to get away from the city, a coded phrase that usually meant getting away from diversity. Andre had moved there for the same reason everyone else did. He wanted the best for his daughter Bella. He wanted her to have the computer labs, the art programs, the safe playgrounds. He paid his taxes. He mowed his lawn on Saturdays. He coached the local t-ball team. But none of that mattered to Officer Grant Miller. Miller was new to the Maplewood force, a transfer from a rougher precinct 3 counties over. He carried his badge not as a shield to protect, but as a sword to dominate. He viewed the community not as citizens to serve, but as a territory to patrol. And when he saw Andre Coleman sitting in his silver minivan, scrolling through emails while waiting for the 2:45 p.m. dismissal bell, Miller didn't see a father. He didn't see a neighbor. He saw a threat. He saw a suspect. He saw a black man in a space where Miller subconsciously believed he didn't belong. Before we dive deeper into this story, where are you watching from? If you've ever felt judged or profiled in a place where you had every right to be, let us know in the comments. And if you believe that accountability is the only bridge to justice, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like Andre's are happening every day, and we need to shine a light on them. The psychology of Officer Miller was not unique, unfortunately. It was the product of a system that often trains officers to view compliance as the ultimate metric of a citizen's worth and presence, as a precursor to crime. Miller had been patrolling the school perimeter for 20 minutes. He'd seen white fathers in Audis and BMWs idling, checking their stocks, even double parked. He'd waved at them. He'd smiled. But when his eyes landed on Andre, a bias deeper than his training kicked in. Why is he just sitting there? Why is the music playing? Why is he looking at me in the rearview mirror? Andre was looking at him because Miller had been circling his car like a shark for 3 minutes. Andre knew the look. Every black man in America knows the look. It's the gaze of authority looking for a pretext. Andre sighed, placing his phone on the dashboard. He was tired. He had just come off a 24-hour shift at Station 41. He'd pulled a family of 4 out of a crushed sedan on the interstate at 3:00 a.m. He smelled like smoke and antiseptic, though he'd showered. He was wearing his off-duty uniform jeans, fresh sneakers, and a plain navy polo. He just wanted to pick up Bella, get her some ice cream, and go home to sleep. When Miller tapped on the glass with his baton hard enough to leave a scratch, Andre knew his afternoon was over. "Roll it down," Miller barked. Andre lowered the window. "Can I help you, officer?" "License and registration." "Did I commit a moving violation? I'm parked." "I said license and registration. Do not argue with me." "I'm asking for the reason for the stop. It's my legal right to know why I'm being detained." "You're being detained because I'm investigating a report of a suspicious vehicle. Now stop stalling." There was no report. Dispatch logs would later confirm this. The suspicious activity was entirely generated in Miller's mind, fabricated in real time to justify his aggression. Andre moved slowly. He narrated his actions, a survival tactic he'd learned not in fire academy but from his father. "I am reaching for my wallet. It is in my back right pocket. I am moving my right hand." "Just get it." Miller snapped his hand, twitching near his belt. Andre handed over his license. Miller snatched it, glancing at it, then back at Andre. This is a city address. The car is registered here in Maplewood. We moved 6 months ago. The DMV hasn't sent the new card yet. The registration is current. Uh-huh. Whose car is this? It's mine, as the registration says. And what are you doing at an elementary school? Andre blinked, incredulous. He gestured to the line of 30 cars in front of and behind him. I'm picking up my daughter. She's in the 2nd grade, same as everyone else here. You don't look like a parent from this district. The words hung in the air, heavy, toxic, undeniable. What does a parent from this district look like, officer? Andre asked, his voice dropping an octave, the steel of a man who has commanded scenes of chaos and death now directed at a bully with a badge. Miller flushed red. He didn't like being challenged. He didn't like the intelligence in Andre's eyes. He didn't like that Andre wasn't trembling. Step out of the car, now. I'm not leaving my vehicle. The bell rings in 2 minutes. My daughter is going to walk out those doors. I'm going to ask you one last time. Step out or I will drag you out. This is the moment that changes everything. The pivot point between a bad interaction and a life-altering tragedy. Andre looked around. Other parents were watching now. A woman in a Range Rover 2 cars back had her phone out. A dad in a truck was staring. Andre calculated the odds. If he stayed, Miller might break the window. If he fought, he might get shot. If he got out, he was submitting to harassment, but he might survive to sue later. Okay, Andre said. I'm unbuckling. I'm stepping out. He opened the door and stood up. Andre was a big man, 6'2". 220 pounds of muscle built from hauling hoses and lifting debris. When he stood to his full height, he towered over Miller. Miller took a step back, intimidated, and his hand went to his radio. Dispatch, I have a non-compliant male large build resisting at the elementary school. Send backup. Resisting, Andre shouted. I am standing right here. I did everything you asked. Turn around, hands on the hood, spread your legs. For what? What is the crime? Disorderly conduct, failure to obey a lawful order. Now turn around. Miller shoved Andre against the hot metal of the minivan. The sound of the impact echoed in the quiet parking lot. Hey! A voice shouted from the sidewalk. It was Sarah Jenkins, the PTA president. She was holding her phone recording. Officer, what are you doing? That's Bella's dad. Miller ignored her. He kicked Andre's legs apart. Stop tensing up. Stop resisting. I'm not resisting. Andre gritted his teeth, his cheek pressed against the hood of his own car. I am a lieutenant with the fire department. My badge is in the center console. You are making a mistake. Sure you are, Miller sneered. And I'm the police commissioner. You're under arrest. The cuffs clicked. Cold steel biting into Andre's wrists. The humiliation was a physical weight heavier than any gear he'd ever worn. He was being treated like a criminal in the one place he had worked so hard to make safe for his child. And then the bell rang. The double doors of the school burst open. A flood of children in bright backpacks poured out laughing, screaming, running toward their parents. Daddy! The voice was small, confused, and terrified. Andre froze. He tried to turn his head. Bella was standing 10 feet away, her pink backpack slipping off one shoulder, her eyes wide with horror. She saw her hero, the man she bragged about to her friends, bent over a car, handcuffed by a policeman. Bella, baby, stay there, Andre called out, his voice cracking. It's okay. Just wait for Mommy to call. Back up! Miller yelled at the 7-year-old girl. He actually put a hand out toward her as if she were a threat. Stay back, Don't you yell at her, Andre roared, struggling against the cuffs. She's a child. That's my daughter. Shut up. Miller shoved Andre's head down harder. The principal, Mrs. Gable, came running out. She was a stern woman who ran her school with military precision. She saw the scene and went pale. Officer, stop this immediately. That is Mr. Coleman. Ma'am, step back. This is an active police situation, Miller said, adrenaline making his voice shake. This suspect. Mrs. Gable got right in Miller's face. He is a parent. He is on the emergency contact list. He volunteers for the fire safety assembly. Unhand him right now. Miller hesitated. The crowd was growing. Phones were everywhere. The narrative he was building in his head that he was subduing a dangerous outsider was collapsing under the weight of reality. But Miller was too prideful to back down. He was committed to the lie. He refused to identify himself. He was aggressive. "We'll sort it out at the station." "You are not taking him anywhere," Mrs. Gable said, putting her arm around a sobbing Bella. "Look what you're doing to his child. Have you lost your mind?" Sirens wailed in the distance. Backup was arriving. 2 more cruisers screeched into the lot. But these officers weren't strangers. They were local veterans. Sergeant Harrison stepped out of the lead car. He took one look at the scene, Officer Miller sweating and aggressive Andre Coleman in cuffs against the minivan, the principal screaming and the crying child, and he knew exactly what had happened. Harrison walked up, his face grim. He knew Andre. They had worked a multi-car pileup together 3 months ago. "Miller," Harrison said, his voice low and dangerous. "Why is Lieutenant Coleman in handcuffs?" Miller blinked. "Lieutenant Sarge, he was loitering. He wouldn't get out of the car. He fit the description of the drug activity we heard about." "There is no drug activity report, Miller," Harrison snapped. "I checked the logs when you called it in. There's nothing. Take the cuffs off, now." But he resisted. "Take the cuffs off." Miller's hands were shaking as he unlocked the bracelets. Andre stood up, rubbing his wrists. He didn't look at Miller. He walked straight to his daughter. "Daddy." Bella buried her face in his legs, sobbing uncontrollably. "Daddy, are you going to jail? Did you do something bad?" Andre picked her up, hugging her tight, shielding her from the sight of the uniform that had just terrorized them. "No, baby. No. Daddy didn't do anything bad. Daddy is okay. It was a mistake. A big mistake." He looked over Bella's shoulder at Officer Miller. The look wasn't rage anymore. It was a promise. "Get his badge number," Andre said to the crowd of parents filming. "I want every angle. I want every word he said." "We got it, Andre," the dad in the truck said. "We got it all." "Do you think police officers who make false arrests based on racial profiling should lose their pensions?" Drop a comment below. It's a debate that comes up every time but rarely leads to change. Maybe this time would be different. The video hit Twitter X an hour later. It hit TikTok 2 hours after that. By the evening news, it was national. The visual was undeniable. A black father, clearly a professional being, manhandled and handcuffed at an elementary school while his daughter watched. The contrast between Miller's escalating aggression and Andre's calm attempts to de-escalate was a textbook example of bias in action. Firefighter dad arrested while waiting for daughter. Racist cop profiles hero in school pickup line. Traumatized 7-year-old watches father handcuffed for waiting while black. The internet did what the internet does. It investigated. Within 24 hours, Grant Miller's past was dug up. He had 4 excessive force complaints at his previous precinct. He had been transferred, not fired, the classic dance of the lemons, where bad cops are just moved to new towns rather than removed from the force. But the real power of the story wasn't just the viral outrage. It was the blue-on-red conflict. Firefighters and police officers usually have an unspoken bond. They are brother services. But Andre Coleman was a beloved leader in the FD. The fire union issued a blistering statement condemning the police department's unchecked aggression and racial profiling. The mayor was furious. The police chief was scrambling. 3 days later, Andre sat in a lawyer's office. His attorney, a shark named Robert Sterling, who specialized in civil rights cases, laid out the photos of Andre's bruised wrists and the psychological evaluation of Bella, who was now having nightmares and refusing to go to school. "They want to settle," Sterling said. "They want this to go away fast. They're offering $500,000. Andre looked out the window. "It's not enough. It's a lot of money, Andre. It's not about the money. It's about the fact that he felt comfortable doing that. It's about the fact that he looked at me and decided I was a criminal because of my skin color, and he didn't care who saw. He didn't care about my daughter. If I hadn't been a lieutenant, if I had been just a regular guy working construction, or if I had reached for my phone a little too fast, I might be dead. Bella might be fatherless." Andre turned back to the lawyer. "I want Miller fired. I want his certification revoked so he can't be a cop anywhere else. And I want a public apology from the chief. And I want $5 million, because they need to feel this. The city needs to understand that employing racists is too expensive to sustain. The lawsuit filed was Coleman v. the City of Maplewood. It alleged unlawful seizure, false arrest, excessive force, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The deposition of Officer Miller was brutal. Sterling picked him apart. "Officer Miller, you stated you suspected drug activity. Can you name the specific behavior Mr. Coleman exhibited that indicated drug distribution?" "He was loitering. He was in a line of cars, is waiting in line, loitering. He was observing me in his mirror. Is looking at a police officer a crime? He didn't fit the demographic." "Ah." Sterling paused, letting silence fill the room. "He didn't fit the demographic. Could you clarify what demographic is allowed to pick up children at Maplewood Elementary?" Miller stayed silent. His lawyer whispered in his ear. "I meant he didn't look like a resident." "Because he is black. No, I'm not racist." "Then tell me, Officer Miller, did you run the plates of the white Ford F-150 behind him? Did you ask the driver of the Lexus in front of him for ID? Did you handcuff any other father that day?" "No." "So the only difference was Mr. Coleman's race. And for that crime you put a 7-year-old girl in therapy and a decorated firefighter in handcuffs." The jury wouldn't be necessary. The city's risk management team looked at the deposition tapes, looked at the viral video with 40 million views, and looked at the burning reputation of their town. They folded. The settlement was historic. $4.5 million. One of the largest payouts for a non-lethal police misconduct case in the state's history. But the money was the secondary headline. The primary victory was the consent decree. As part of the settlement, the Maplewood Police Department had to agree to an external audit of all stops and arrests for the next 5 years. They had to implement a strict duty to intervene policy, meaning officers like Sergeant Harrison were legally required to stop bad cops immediately, not just de-escalate later. And Officer Grant Miller. He was fired. But Andre didn't stop there. He pushed the state licensing board. He testified at the hearing. He showed the video. And for the first time in that board's recent history, they voted to permanently revoke a peace officer's certification based on a pattern of bias and incompetence. Miller would never carry a badge and a gun again. He ended up working security at a warehouse, a job where his power was limited to checking receipts. 6 months later, Andre stood before the city council. The room was packed. Firefighters in dress blues filled the back rows. Parents from the school filled the seats. Andre adjusted the microphone. He looked tired but strong. Bella was sitting in the front row holding her mother's hand. She still got nervous when she saw police cars, but she was getting better. She knew her dad had fought back not with fists, but with truth. "I've heard people say that I should be happy," Andre began, his voice echoing in the chamber. "I won the lawsuit. The bad apple is gone. The system worked." He paused, looking at the council members. "But the system didn't work." The system failed the moment Officer Miller put on that uniform. The system failed when his previous department passed him along instead of firing him. The system failed when he looked at me and saw a predator instead of a parent. I am a firefighter. When I put on my uniform, I don't ask the people I save who they voted for or where they come from or what color they are. I just see a human being in danger and I act. Why is it so hard for police to do the same? Why do we have to be exceptional just to be treated as equal? Why did I have to be a lieutenant for you to care? What if I was just Andre? We talk about bad apples, but if you put a bad apple in a barrel and leave it there, it rots the whole thing. Officer Miller was comfortable abusing his power because he thought the barrel would protect him. He thought his badge gave him the right to own the space around him. He thought my fear was his fuel. This settlement money is going to send my daughter to college, but I would give every cent of it back, every single penny, if I could erase the memory of her screaming my name while I was bent over that hood. You cannot put a price on dignity. And until we stop policing bodies and start policing behavior, until we stop weaponizing fear against black men, this city isn't safe, not for me and not for you. And the lesson here isn't that I won. The lesson is that I shouldn't have had to fight. Andre stepped back from the podium. The room was silent for a heartbeat, and then the applause started. It wasn't polite applause. It was a thunderous standing ovation. But as Andre walked back to his seat, he caught the eye of the police chief. The chief nodded a gesture of respect. Andre didn't nod back. He just looked at him. A look that said, "I'm watching you. We are all watching you." Andre picked up Bella. She buried her face in his neck, the safest place in her world. "Let's go get that ice cream, baby," he whispered. "Okay, Daddy," she whispered back. They walked out of the city hall into the evening light. A father and daughter survivors of a battle they never asked for, walking down a street that finally perhaps belonged to them too. The story of Andre Coleman and Officer Miller serves as a brutal reminder of a pervasive truth in our society. Prejudice is a thief. It steals dignity, it steals safety, and in the worst cases, it steals lives. Officer Miller's actions were driven by the arrogant assumption that he was the protagonist of the world, and that anyone who didn't fit his script was a villain. He believed his badge gave him the authority to define reality, but he learned at a high cost that authority without accountability is just tyranny dressed up in a uniform. Andre Coleman's victory teaches us that while we cannot control the biases of others, we can control how we respond to them. By knowing his rights, by maintaining his composure, and by demanding accountability, he turned a moment of victimization into a movement for justice. But the most expensive lesson here is for the institutions. A $4.5 million judgment is a tax on racism. It is the cost of tolerating intolerance. If departments refuse to weed out the Millers of the world because of brotherhood or unions, they will eventually pay for it with their budgets and their public trust. To the Millers of the world. The cameras are rolling, the world is watching, and the days of operating in the shadows of impunity are over. To the Andres, you belong here. You have always belonged here, and you never have to justify your existence to anyone.
This briefing is now complete. For more factual case reviews, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching Bodycam Incident Reports.